My name is Jessa O'Brien. I'm 34. And for most of my life, my family has told people I dig ditches for a living. Like that single phrase explains everything I am, everything I've built, and exactly where I belong in their little hierarchy. I used to laugh it off. Then I started correcting people. Then I stopped correcting people. Because I realized something uglier. They weren't confused. They were committed. 3 days before my father's retirement dinner, I bought a brand new Ford Expedition. $62,000, fully loaded, Canyon Ridge color, the kind of SUV you see parked in front of a perfect life. The plan was simple. Pull up to Giovanni's in Scottsdale, wait for the right moment, put the keys in his palm, and watch his face break into that rare, soft smile that made him look like the version of Dad I missed. That man existed, at least I thought he did. Before I walked inside, I parked the Expedition in the back lot, far away from the other cars, like I was hiding evidence. The key fob sat in a gift box in my jacket pocket, wrapped with a neat little bow my boyfriend insisted on tying himself. Ethan, my boyfriend, was already inside. He's 29, an architect, and somehow manages to look calm, even when he's bracing for impact. We'd been together 18 months, and within the first 3, he figured out my family's favorite sport was taking turns making me feel smaller. His ex-girlfriend used to call it their sense of humor. Ethan calls it what it is, cruelty with a smile. When I walked in around 6:15 p.m., the back room glowed with dim lighting and dark wood paneling. About 40 people milled around, extended family, my dad's coworkers, neighbors, and a glittery chunk of my sister's social circle dressed like they were headed to a Manhattan cocktail lounge instead of an Italian restaurant in Arizona. Ethan spotted me instantly and lifted 2 fingers in a subtle, "You good?" gesture. I slid into the chair beside him, and he leaned in like he was passing confidential intel. "Your mom's been asking where you were," he murmured. "She said you're always late." "I'm 15 minutes early," I whispered back. Ethan's mouth twitched. I told her that. "And?" "She said you must have set your watch wrong." Classic mom. Sharon O'Brien, 63, former PTA president, current book club president, and professional disappointment dispenser. She wears the same expression in every photo, like she's standing beside something that didn't quite live up to its potential. My dad was different, or he used to be. Dennis O'Brien, 65, started on a survey crew, worked his way up to senior project manager. He understood what I did. He'd seen me drag myself through a master's program in civil engineering, take the job no one wanted, thrive in it anyway. He wasn't the type to brag, but he used to respect me in a quiet way that felt like oxygen. That's why I bought the SUV. His old truck, a battered F-150, had been dying slowly for 12 years. Retirement was supposed to mean he didn't have to keep nursing it along with duct tape and stubbornness. 2 months of research, negotiations, a small loan, a savings account I'd emptied down to the last confident dollar, all for one moment. And then my sister saw me. Claudia, 37, pharmaceutical sales rep, walking brand campaign for herself. Leased Tesla. Downtown loft she could barely afford. Smile like a polished knife. She stood near the bar with 3 friends who looked like they'd never tasted tap water. When she spotted me, her voice rose just enough to gather attention. "Jessa, finally!" she called, like I was the entertainment. "Everyone, my little sister's here." Ethan's hand brushed my thigh under the table. One small squeeze, a silent, "Don't let her bait you." I walked over anyway, because I still had this stupid reflex to participate in my own humiliation, like maybe this time I'd earn a different outcome. Claudia hooked an arm around my shoulder and faced her friends. "I was just telling them about your job." "Here we go." One of her friends, lip gloss so shiny it looked wet, tilted her head. "Wait, what do you do again?" Claudia smiled wider. "She digs holes." "I don't use a shovel," I said evenly. "I use a $2 million directional drilling rig." Claudia laughed like I'd delivered a punchline. "Same difference. Manual labor is manual labor." Another friend chimed in, delighted. "So is it like hard? Digging all day?" "I'm an engineer," I said, careful. "I plan, design, and oversee infrastructure installations." "But you're outside, right?" the friend pushed, eyes bright with the thrill of simplifying someone. "Like in the dirt sometimes?" "That's where underground utilities are," I said. "Underground." They all laughed. Claudia patted my shoulder like I was a child in a costume. "It's okay, Jessa. Not everyone can work in an office. Somebody has to do the grunt work." My jaw tightened, but my voice stayed level. Somebody has to make sure your office has water and sewage lines. Claudia blinked like she'd forgotten that part. Then she turned back to her friends, already bored with me. Anyway, I closed this huge deal last week. 3 hospitals, 5-year contract. My boss said it was the biggest sale of the quarter. Of course he did. I walked back to our table, my ears hot, my heartbeat too loud. Ethan watched my face like he was reading weather patterns. She started early, he murmured. She never stops, I whispered back. As if summoned by her own name, my mother appeared seconds later. Sharon wore her standard fancy event uniform, a designer-looking dress that wasn't, jewelry that caught light but not value, and a hairstyle she'd maintained since 1987, like it was a moral stance. "Jessa," she said, air kissing near my cheek. "There you are. I was worried you'd forgotten." "I'm early," I said. Her smile tightened. Sure." Then she turned her attention to Ethan. "Hello, Ethan. That's a colorful tie." His tie was black. Ethan's expression didn't change. "Good evening, Sharon." "We saved seats at the family table," Mom continued, "but I wasn't sure if you'd want to sit there or with the others." "The others?" I repeated. "You know," she said, glancing vaguely across the room like she was indicating a separate species. "Your father's old co-workers. The workers. Some of them are here. I thought you might be more comfortable." Ethan's fingers slid over mine beneath the table, warm, steady. "We're fine here," I said. Mom's smile stayed in place, but something sharpened behind it. "Suit yourself. Just don't leave early like you usually do. Your sister's planning a speech, and it would be rude if you weren't here." Of course Claudia was giving a speech. Dinner was called around 7 p.m. Mom had orchestrated the seating like a royal wedding. Claudia and her boyfriend Connor on Dad's left, Mom on his right. Ethan and I ended up at a side table with Uncle Ray and his wife Susan. Ray leaned over grinning. "Exiled again, huh?" "Apparently," I said. He snorted. "Sharon's been doing that for years." Dinner started. Dad stood to thank everyone, got a little choked up, talking about retirement. For a second, my chest loosened. For a second, I saw him, the dad I'd bought the SUV for. Then Claudia grabbed the microphone without asking. "I just want to say something about my dad," she announced, voice loud and practiced. "He worked so hard to give us opportunities to make something of ourselves." She looked directly at me. "He taught us that education matters," she continued, "that professionalism matters, and I think I've embodied that. My career, my position, my awards. I think Dad's proud." Polite applause. Mom beamed like Claudia had just cured a disease. "And Jessa," Claudia said, sweet as poison. "Well, Jessa chose a different path, more hands-on. And that's okay. Not everyone is cut out for corporate life." I felt Ethan go still beside me. "Someone has to dig the ditches, right?" Claudia laughed. The room laughed louder. And then, like the universe was testing how much I could take, my father chuckled too. Uncle Ray leaned in, voice low. "You really gonna sit here and take this?" I didn't answer because my throat had gone tight. The gift box in my pocket suddenly felt like a brick, a stupid, expensive brick. Handing Dad those keys had been my dream moment. Now it felt like handing a prize to someone who'd just joined in on the joke. Dessert came out. People kept laughing. Claudia basked in it. I stared at my plate like it was going to tell me what to do. Ethan's voice slid in softly. "Breathe, Jessa." I did. And that's when I realized I wasn't breathing because I was sad. I was breathing because I was deciding. Because the truth was simple. My father didn't need a new SUV, but someone else did. And the moment I finally stood up to go to the bathroom, the bow-wrapped key fob in my pocket felt less like a gift and more like a loaded decision. I didn't even make it to the bathroom. Halfway across the room, the laughter behind me rose again, sharp, careless, like my humiliation was dessert entertainment. I stopped near the hallway, hand braced against the wall, and just stood there for a second while the restaurant noise blurred into a dull roar. Ethan caught up fast. He didn't touch me, didn't crowd me, just stepped into my peripheral vision like a steady light. "You okay?" he asked softly. I stared at the pattern in the wallpaper. Vines, little gold accents. The kind of decor meant to feel expensive, meant to make people behave. I said, before I remembered who I'm surrounded by. His jaw tightened. "Do you want to leave?" I looked past him toward the main table. My mother leaned in close to Claudia, smiling proudly like the speech had been some kind of philanthropic achievement. Connor had his arm around Claudia's waist, nodding along like she'd delivered wisdom from a mountaintop. And my dad, sat there letting it happen, eyes tired, mouth curved, in that half smile he wore when he didn't want to confront anything ugly. The gift box in my jacket pocket felt like it had its own pulse now. I realized something that made my stomach turn. I had been picturing his reaction for weeks. Tears, gratitude, a hug, a moment. But what if, even after everything, he'd still accepted it without defending me? What if he'd taken the keys while my sister's words still hung in the air like smoke? My chest tightened, and I knew, absolutely knew, if I handed him that gift tonight, I'd be teaching them all the same lesson they'd been learning for years. You can treat Jessa however you want. She'll still show up with presents. Ethan watched my face like he could see the decision forming before I spoke it. I'm leaving, I said. Okay, he replied instantly, like he'd been waiting for permission. We walked back to our table. Uncle Ray looked up at us, and his eyebrows lifted. Ah, he said, voice amused. That face, I know that face. Susan's eyes widened. Jessa, are you all right? I sat down for 1 second, not because I needed to, but because I needed to control how I stood back up. Then I leaned forward, elbows on the table. I bought Dad something, I said quietly. Ray's grin flickered, curious. Oh yeah? I nodded once. Big, like retirement big. Ethan's hand slid over mine under the table again. He already knew. He'd been with me for the dealership visit, the negotiations, the hours comparing trim levels like I was planning a military operation instead of a surprise gift. Susan inhaled sharply. That's so sweet. It was, I said, past tense. Ray's eyes narrowed. Wait, did you already give it to him? No. My voice came out colder than I expected, and I'm not going to. Ethan didn't flinch. He just looked at me with a calm kind of respect, like he was watching me finally choose myself. Ray leaned closer, lowering his voice. You gonna tell them? I looked toward the main table again. My mom was mid-laugh now, head tilted back, jewelry catching light. Claudia was sipping wine like she'd just won an award. I'm not doing a speech, I said. I'm doing a consequence. Susan's lips parted. Jessa. Not dramatic, I added. Just accurate. I stood. As if she had radar for disobedience, my mother appeared at our table within seconds, arms crossed, expression already preloaded with disapproval. Where are you going? Sharon asked. Home, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Before dessert? I'm not hungry. She looked past me at Ethan like he was the bad influence. Ethan, you're leaving too? Ethan's smile was polite but empty. Yes, Sharon. My mother's gaze snapped back to me. Your father's retirement dinner is not something you just walk out of. It's also not something you use as a stage to humiliate your child, I said. Her face twitched. Oh, for God's sake, Claudia was teasing. That's what you call it, I replied. She leaned in, voice lowering to a hiss. Do not embarrass us. I laughed. One short sound I didn't mean to make. Embarrass you, I repeated. You mean like the part where your daughter announced to 40 people that I dig ditches? Like the part where you smiled through it? Or like the part where Dad laughed along? My mother's mouth tightened. You're being sensitive. If you're embarrassed by your job... I'm not embarrassed by my job, I cut in, voice steady, dangerous. I'm embarrassed by my family. Uncle Ray made a choking sound, like he'd swallowed a laugh. Susan's hand went to her mouth. My mother's face went red so fast it was almost impressive. How dare you? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the gift box. Her eyes lit instantly, like she couldn't help it. For a second, I saw the fantasy she was already building. My dad holding it up, everyone clapping. Claudia forced to smile while my mother soaked in praise for raising such a generous daughter. Sharon's fingers stretched toward it. I moved it back. Her smile froze. I was going to give him this, I said calmly, but I changed my mind. My mother's breath hitched. Jessa. No, I said. Tonight taught me something. She stared at the box like it was oxygen she suddenly couldn't access. What is it? She demanded. I tilted my head. Why? So you can decide whether it's worth treating me like a human? Her eyes flashed. That gift is for your father. This is his day. He deserved respect, I said, and he watched me get mocked instead. Behind her, Claudia finally noticed the tension and started walking over, heels clicking, expression annoyed like we'd interrupted her spotlight. What's happening? Claudia asked, voice loud enough for people to look. Why is Mom upset? Sharon snapped. Your sister is throwing a tantrum. I looked directly at Claudia. You called me a ditch digger in front of everyone. Claudia's eyes widened in fake innocence. Oh my God, are you still on that? It was a joke. It wasn't funny, I said. Connor stepped in beside her, arms still around Claudia like she was the wounded party. Come on, Jessa. Don't make this a thing. I didn't, I replied. Claudia did, and Mom did, and Dad let it happen. Claudia scoffed. You always do this. You always act like we're attacking you when we're just... Just what? I asked softly. Just reminding me where you think I belong? Claudia's smile hardened. You're so dramatic. Ethan finally spoke, voice even. Calling her a ditch digger in public wasn't a joke. It was contempt. Claudia blinked like she couldn't compute a man taking my side. Sharon's voice sharpened. Ethan, stay out of this. Ethan didn't move. No. I took a breath because the room was watching now. Not everyone. Some people pretended to be fascinated by their dessert. But enough. I turned toward the main table where my father sat. Dad looked up, confusion creasing his brow. Jessa? Just hearing him say my name should have softened me. It used to. But all I could see was him laughing. I walked closer, stopped a few feet away. Congratulations on retiring, I said, voice steady. He frowned. What's going on? I was going to give you something tonight, I said, holding up the gift box slightly. A retirement gift. My mother let out a sharp breath like she'd been vindicated. Claudia's eyes flicked to the box, greedy curiosity. Dad's expression warmed, just slightly. Jessa, you didn't have to... I know, I said, and I shouldn't have. The warmth vanished. The room went quiet in that dangerous, hungry way, like everyone sensed something major was about to happen. My mother's voice trembled. Give it to him. I looked at her. No. Claudia's jaw dropped. Are you kidding? Dad stared at me, stunned. Jessa, what is it? I held his gaze. It was supposed to be something that said, I'm proud of you. Something that said, thank you. His face softened again, hopeful. Then I added quietly, but tonight you laughed while they made me feel small. So I realized, you don't need my thank you. My mother hissed, how dare! I cut her off, still looking at my father. Enjoy your dinner. Then I turned away. Behind me, my mother's voice rose. You can't leave like this. What about your father's gift? You're humiliating him. Claudia snapped, you are unbelievable. I didn't answer. Ethan followed, close behind, and as we walked out, I heard Uncle Ray murmur something that sounded like a quiet, delighted, finally. Outside, the desert air hit my lungs like cold clarity. We crossed the parking lot under the yellow glow of streetlights. Ethan exhaled. Okay, he said, like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. What now? I stopped walking. I looked at the back lot where the expedition sat, clean, untouched, waiting like a promise. I give it to someone who deserves it, I said. Ethan's eyes sharpened. Who? It took me 3 seconds. Carlos, I replied. Ethan didn't ask who Carlos was. He already knew. He'd heard the stories. The crew chief who ran million-dollar drilling rigs like they were extensions of his own hands. The man who sent half his paycheck home. Who refused to buy himself anything new, whose truck sounded like it was dying in installments. Ethan nodded once, slow. Okay. That was it. No lecture. No, are you sure? No guilt. Just okay. And in that moment, I loved him so fiercely it almost hurt. On the drive, my phone buzzed. Text from my mother. Come back right now. This is not optional. I didn't respond. Another buzz. From Claudia. You're ruining Dad's night for attention. I laughed, dry, disbelieving, then tossed the phone face down. Ethan watched me. You sure you want to do this tonight? Yes, I said. Because if I waited until morning, doubt would start creeping in, wearing my mother's voice. I pulled up Carlos's contact and hit call. He answered on the second ring, sounding confused. Boss, everything okay? Yeah, I said. You home? Yeah, watching TV with Maria. Why? I need you outside, I replied. Silence. It's almost 9, he said carefully. What's going on? Trust me, I said. Just come outside. He hesitated. Okay, give me a minute. Carlos lived in Mesa, about 20 minutes out. The drive felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Like I was leaving one version of my life behind with every mile. When we pulled into his street, I saw him immediately. Standing in his driveway under the porch light, arms crossed, posture tense like he was bracing for bad news. Maria hovered near the door, worried. Carlos stepped forward when I parked. Boss, he said, voice cautious. What's this about? Then his eyes landed on the expedition. He squinted. Nice truck. That yours? I got out slowly. Ethan stayed in the passenger seat, watching through the windshield like he was witnessing something sacred. I reached into my pocket. Nope, I said. Carlos frowned. Then whose? I held out the key fob. Yours. He blinked. Then he laughed once, confused. What? I tossed it gently. He caught it on reflex, and for a second he just stared at it like I'd handed him a live grenade. Just a bit, he said, voice dropping. No, I can't. Yes, you can, I replied. His hands shook slightly. He looked from the key fob to the SUV to me, like the world had slipped out of alignment. Maria took a step forward. Carlos, what it? Carlos swallowed hard. Boss, this is insane. It's not insane, I said quietly. It's earned. He shook his head so fast it looked panicked. This is 60 grand. 62, I said, but who's counting? His mouth opened, closed. People don't just give employees cars. I do whatever I want with my money, I replied. And I want you to have this. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly. Carlos's voice cracked. Why? I stared at him for a moment, and the answer rose up from somewhere deeper than anger. Because you show up, I said. Every day. You take care of your people. You do the hard work without making anyone feel small for needing you. Carlos's eyes flashed with something raw. Jessa, your truck died last week, I continued. You apologized to me like it was your fault. Like it was a moral failure that your Silverado finally gave up after 200,000 miles. He looked away, ashamed. And my family, I said, voice tightening. They think people who work with their hands are disposable, a joke, a punchline. Carlos's jaw clenched. So I bought the SUV for someone who deserved it, I finished. Turns out that's you. The silence stretched. Then Carlos let out a broken sound and stepped forward, hugging me so hard I actually staggered. Thank you, he whispered, voice trembling. Good Lord, thank you. My throat burned. I patted his back, forcing myself to breathe. Promise me you'll stop driving that death trap. He laughed through tears. Deal. Maria was crying openly now, wiping her cheeks with her hands, like she couldn't believe the tears were real. She hugged me next, murmuring, bless you, bless you. Then she turned and hugged Ethan too, because that's who they were, people who hugged, people who included. Carlos walked around the expedition like it was a spaceship, opened the doors, stared at the leather seats, the screens, the buttons. It's got leather, he whispered, dazed. My daughter's gonna lose her mind. Ethan finally stepped out of the car and came to stand beside me. He leaned in and murmured, your family has no idea what they just lost. And that's when my phone buzzed again. I didn't even have to look to know it was my mother, because deep down I could feel it. The moment my family realized the gift wasn't waiting for them anymore, they were going to come after me like I'd committed a crime. And the worst part? They weren't going to stop at me. They were going to come after Carlos too. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, lighting up the ceiling like a warning system. Texts, missed calls, voicemails I didn't listen to. My mother first, then Claudia, then numbers I didn't recognize, probably relatives drafted into service. Ethan rolled over once, squinting at my glowing screen. You okay? Yeah, I said, and for the first time it wasn't a lie. Because beneath the noise, beneath the guilt my mother had trained into me since childhood, there was something quieter and steadier. Relief. By morning, the relief sharpened into resolve. Carlos had texted me a photo at 6:42 a.m., him standing next to the expedition in his driveway, hair still messy, smile so wide it barely fit on his face. Another one followed, Maria hugging him, then a third, his daughter Rosa, eyes wide, hands pressed to her mouth like she'd just seen magic. Perfect. I stared at the photos for a long time. This wasn't revenge, this was truth. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee, Ethan across from me, scrolling through his phone. You're thinking about posting it, he said, not looking up. I am, he nodded. They're going to lose their minds. I know. Do it anyway. That was Ethan. He didn't push. He didn't protect me from consequences I already understood. He just refused to stand in the way of my spine growing in. I opened my socials and chose the best photo, Carlos beside the SUV, sunlight hitting the hood just right, joy written all over his face. I wrote the caption carefully. Not too smug, not defensive, just honest enough to sting. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, work hard, and have your back every single day. Carlos has been my crew chief for 6 years. Best driller I've ever worked with. Never complains. Never cuts corners. His truck died last week, so I got him a new one. He earned it. I tagged Carlos, tagged the company, set it to public. Then I closed the app and put my phone face down. 30 minutes, Ethan said, checking the time. Max. He was right. The first comment came from a former classmate. This is incredible. Respect. Then another. Wish more bosses were like this. Then someone from the industry. This is leadership. By 10 a.m., it had exploded. Shares, comments, messages from people I barely knew. Engineers, project managers, site supervisors, telling me their own versions of the same story. My family never respected what I do. They think blue-collar work is beneath them. Thank you for valuing your people. Ethan read over my shoulder. You didn't just post a picture, he said. You lit a match in the right room. My phone rang. Claudia. I stared at the name until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. And again. On the third call, I answered. What? I said. What the hell is this post? Claudia snapped. No greeting, no pretense. It's a picture, I replied, with words. You bought your employee a $60,000 car, she said. That was Dad's gift. It was, I said calmly. There was a pause, just long enough for the word to sink in. Was, she repeated. Yes. You're kidding me. Nope. You're punishing Dad because I made a joke? She demanded. Stop calling it a joke, I said. You humiliated me in front of 40 people. Oh my God, she scoffed. You're so dramatic, everyone laughed. Yes, I said, you did, and that's the point. This makes us look awful, she hissed. I smiled. No, Claudia, this shows people exactly who we are. Mom must have been listening on another line because my phone buzzed with her call while Claudia was still talking. I hung up on Claudia and answered my mother. What have you done? Sharon demanded. I gave my money to someone who deserved it, I said. That vehicle was meant for your father, she snapped. You had no right. I had every right, I cut in. I paid for it. You embarrassed this family, she said, voice shaking now. People are calling, asking questions. Good, I replied. Maybe answer them honestly for once. She inhaled sharply. You need to take that post down. Now. No, you don't get to decide that, she said. I already did. Her voice dropped into something colder. You've always been ungrateful. I laughed. A real laugh this time. You told people for 10 years that I dug ditches. That's what you do. I'm a trenchless engineer with a master's degree, I said, but you never liked that answer. Silence. Then she said the thing she thought would hurt me most. If you'd just chosen a more respectable career, none of this would be happening. I closed my eyes. I'm blocking you, I said. And I did. An hour later, Ethan showed me something on his phone. Your sister posted. Claudia had gone nuclear. Long rant. Multiple platforms. Same message copy-pasted everywhere. My sister stole a $60,000 retirement gift meant for our father and gave it to a random employee to make herself look good. Now she refuses to speak to us. This is narcissism. This is toxic behavior. If anyone knows Jessamine O'Brien from Southwest Infrastructure Solutions, maybe remind her that family means something. She tagged my company, industry publications, mutual LinkedIn connections. She wasn't just mad. She was trying to burn my professional life down. Ethan's jaw tightened. That was a mistake. He didn't mean morally. He meant strategically, because the comments section turned on her fast. So let me get this straight. You publicly mocked your sister, and now you're mad she didn't give you the gift? Gifts aren't obligations. Imagine being this entitled to someone else's money. Then someone posted a video link. The room went quiet around me as I watched it load. Footage from the retirement dinner. Claudia at the microphone, her voice loud and confident. Her joke, clear as day. Someone has to dig the ditches, right? The comments exploded. Even Claudia's friends started backing away. That's not teasing. That's humiliation. You did this to yourself. Claudia started deleting comments. Too late. By noon, the video was everywhere. By afternoon, my inbox was full of messages from industry peers offering support. And by evening, my boss called. I braced myself. Instead, he laughed. Best PR we've had in years, he said. Phones haven't stopped ringing. I hung up and stared at Ethan. They tried to destroy my career, I said slowly. And accidentally boosted it, he replied. I thought it was over. I was wrong, because my family wasn't done with me. And next, they weren't going to come after my reputation. They were going to come after Carlos. Sunday morning, my phone rang at 11:03 a.m. I knew something was wrong before I even answered, because Carlos never called me on weekends unless a drill rig was on fire or someone was hurt. Boss, he said, voice tight, your dad's been calling me, a lot. My stomach dropped. Calling you how? Over and over, he said, saying the SUV belongs to him, that there's been a misunderstanding, that I need to bring it back. My grip tightened on the phone. Did you tell him anything? I told him you gave it to me, that it was yours to give. He didn't like that. Anger rose fast and hot, but underneath it was something colder. Fear, because I knew my family, and I knew they didn't stop when they felt entitled. Carlos, I said carefully, block his number. The title is in your name. The SUV is legally yours. There was a pause. He mentioned lawyers. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Let him try. We hung up, and I immediately emailed my attorney. I laid everything out. The harassment, the public accusations, the attempts to reclaim property that was legally mine to give away. His reply came faster than I expected. You have solid grounds for a cease and desist. If the behavior escalates or they contact your employee again, we can pursue harassment charges. I exhaled, slow. I should have sent that letter right then. But I hesitated, because part of me still hoped they'd stop on their own. That hope died 2 days later. Wednesday afternoon, Carlos called again. This time his voice was shaking. "Boss," he said, "your mom came to my house." I went cold. "She did what?" "She knocked," Maria answered. "Your mom started demanding the keys. Said the SUV was stolen property. Said we manipulated you." My hands curled into fists. "Did she leave?" "Eventually," he said, after Maria told her we'd call the police. I could hear Maria crying softly in the background. I grabbed my keys. "I'm coming over." "No," Carlos said quickly. "You don't need to. I'm already on my way." When I pulled into their driveway, Maria was sitting on the porch steps, eyes red, shoulders slumped. Carlos stood beside her, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. I climbed out of the car and didn't even try to hide my rage. "I am so sorry," I said. "This is unacceptable." Maria shook her head. She said, "People like us always look for handouts, that you wouldn't just give a car without getting something back." I felt something inside me snap cleanly in two. "That ends today," I said. That night, I authorized the cease and desist letter. Certified mail. Clear language. No room for interpretation. Stop contacting me and my employee. Stop claiming ownership of property you do not own. Any further harassment will result in legal action. I sent copies to my parents and Claudia. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. But the damage was already rippling outward. Because while my family couldn't reach me anymore, Claudia still had the internet, and she was spiraling. The cease and desist letters landed on Thursday morning. Certified, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. I didn't hear a word from my parents after that. Not a call, not a voicemail, not even one of my mother's dramatic, guilt-soaked texts about family betrayal or God seeing everything. For the first time in weeks, the silence felt earned. But Claudia? Claudia reacted the only way she knew how. She doubled down. By noon, Ethan forwarded me a screenshot from a private pharma sales discussion group. Someone had posted anonymously. "Does anyone know what's going on with this rep? She's airing family drama online and tagging companies. Compliance nightmare." Another comment followed. "Isn't she the one who always posts about hospital contracts and big wins? That's not okay." I felt a slow, heavy dread settle into my chest. Not for myself, but because I knew what was coming. Claudia had always overshared. Sales calls, client dinners, executive conversations. Never naming names, but always leaving enough breadcrumbs that anyone in the industry could connect the dots. And now, people were connecting them. By Friday morning, her LinkedIn headline had changed. "Seeking new opportunities." No company listed, no achievements, no awards. Just gone. Uncle Ray called me laughing so hard he had to catch his breath. "She got fired," he said. I closed my eyes. "You're sure?" "Positive. Susan's friend works adjacent to compliance. They investigated her posts after someone tagged the company in her meltdown. Turns out she'd been skirting confidentiality rules for years." I said nothing. "Last straw," Ray continued. 2 months ago, she mentioned contract dollar amounts and named a hospital system. That hospital saw her rant because someone tagged them. I exhaled slowly. She hadn't just burned a bridge. She'd poured gasoline on it and complained about the heat. Claudia tried to spin it. Of course she did. She posted again. "Corporate America punishes women for speaking their truth." The comments were merciless. "You weren't fired for speaking your truth. You were fired for violating policy. Maybe focus on your career instead of trying to destroy your sister's." She deleted it within hours. Too late. Word spreads fast in pharma sales. And once your name is associated with poor judgment, it sticks. Carlos called me that afternoon, voice hesitant. "Boss, I heard about your sister." "Yeah," I said. "I heard too." "I feel bad," he admitted. "If I hadn't taken the car." "Stop," I said firmly. "She did this to herself." There was a pause. "Okay." That weekend, my mother tried a new tactic. She didn't call me. She called Susan, crying, dramatic, framing herself as the real victim. According to Uncle Ray, Mom said, if Jessa had just given her father the SUV like a good daughter, none of this would have happened. Claudia wouldn't have posted. She wouldn't have lost her job. I laughed when Ray told me. "Accountability really is her kryptonite," I said. 6 weeks later, my dad sent a text. 2 words. "I'm sorry." No explanation, no ownership, no acknowledgement of what he'd allowed. I deleted it. Not out of spite, but because apologies without understanding don't repair anything. Meanwhile, my life kept improving. The post was still circulating. Industry publications picked it up. Speaking requests started coming in about leadership, workplace culture, valuing skilled labor. My boss gave me a raise and more autonomy. Whatever you did, he said, keep doing it. Ethan watched all of this quietly. One night, while we were eating takeout on the couch, he said, "You know what they're really mad about, right?" I looked at him. "Tell me." "They needed you to stay small," he said, "because the second you proved you weren't, their whole story about you fell apart." He was right. And that realization hurt almost as much as it healed, because I finally understood. I wasn't grieving the family I lost. I was grieving the family I never actually had. And once that grief settled, I felt lighter than I ever had before. 3 months passed. No calls, no ambush visits, no late-night voicemails about family duty or what God expects. The cease and desist letter worked, at least in the way legal paper can succeed where love fails. The noise stopped. And in the quiet, something unexpected happened. My life got good. Not the kind of look how successful I am good that my sister used to perform online, but the steady, grounded kind that doesn't need an audience to feel real. Work thrived. 7 new contracts landed in under 90 days. 2 clients admitted outright that they'd reached out because they'd heard about the engineer who actually values her people. My boss gave me more project authority, more autonomy, and a raise that finally reflected the scope of what I carried. Carlos was still driving that expedition like it was sacred. 8,000 miles on it already. He washed it every Sunday, religiously. His daughter Rosa sent me a handwritten thank you card that made me cry at my desk. Knowing my dad has a reliable car changed everything for us. I worry less. I focus more. Thank you for seeing him. That card meant more than anything my family had ever given me. One night, Ethan and I were sitting on the couch, legs tangled, some half-watched show murmuring in the background. He paused it suddenly. "I want to ask you something," he said. I turned toward him. "Okay. Do you think you'd ever let them back in?" I didn't need to think. "No," I said, "not like before." He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. 2 weeks later, on a random Tuesday, he proposed. No audience, no performance. Just us after dinner, his voice steady and a little nervous as he said my name. I said yes before he finished the sentence. "We're getting married next spring." Small ceremony, Uncle Ray officiating, Susan crying the whole time. My parents aren't invited. Neither is Claudia. Not out of punishment, but because peace doesn't negotiate with people who refuse accountability. Claudia's still unemployed, according to Uncle Ray. She's applied for dozens of roles, mostly entry-level marketing positions now. Her old network won't touch her. Turns out being known as someone who weaponizes personal drama and ignores professional boundaries isn't great for career longevity. Dad's truck is still running. Saw it in a photo on Aunt Susan's Facebook. He looks fine. Retirement suits him. They're okay without me, and I'm more than okay without them. Last weekend, Ethan and I toured a house in Tempe. 3 bedrooms, a yard, a future. He asked, "Do you think your parents would ever want to see it?" I laughed. "Why would I let them?" He smiled. "Good answer. That's the thing about cutting toxic people out of your life. It's not just about removing pain. It's about making space. Space for respect. Space for love that doesn't come with conditions. Space for a life where you don't have to shrink to be accepted." My family spent years making me feel small. And the moment I proved I wasn't, that I'd built something real, that I didn't need their approval, they lost their minds. I didn't. I chose myself. And honestly, that was the most valuable gift I ever gave.